PragerU says that Hollywood is incredibly woke, and while it's true that Hollywood does have a more liberal bias than it does a conservative one, gee, I wonder why that is. We'll go ahead and go over their video, but before we get into that, let's go ahead and get into fan art section, where first XLR says it's 3 a.m. I just finished watching a drunk Vosh on stream, and I posted this before I go to sleep. That is a feral slime Suris. The next one we have here is from Axo that has cream, so I was going to update my Surision, but I realized I made this good boy. This slime is new, okay? He's still learning, and he's trying his best. This slime gives me fear. This slime gives me fear. The last one we have here is from Kidderdoodle. It said, "Happy belated Halloween, everyone. I come for you bearing a festive treat. A slime Suris handing out candy to some kids dressed as Vice Rhino and Ocean Keltoy." I love this one. This one's adorable. This is amazing. This is good. This gives the good dopamine. As always, everyone, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop in the fan art section of the Discord. With that all said, let's go ahead and get into PragerU.
Why does Hollywood lean so far to the left?
Probably because they want money, and there are more liberals in America than there are conservatives.
I'm an entertainment journalist and movie critic, so I get asked this question a lot. If Hollywood reflected America, then half of Tinseltown should be as red as it is blue.
No. The demographics in America are not actually split down the middle. We don't have half conservatives, half liberals. There's people from all sides of the political spectrum, but by and large, more conservatives turn out for votes than do liberals by percentage. We end up getting about an even 50-50 split because a lot of people who turn out to vote who are on the left, a lot of the ones that don't are really, really disaffected. I don't know how to tell you this, but more people are progressive in the States than conservative, by and large. And I know that when you look at a political map of the United States, that may not seem true, but you have to remember, rural areas are sparsely populated, whereas cities are densely populated, and cities happen to be where the liberals live. Oh, by the way, it's also pretty important, maybe just important to note, but most filming takes place in cities. Whether it be sets, whether it be just that's the area where they start out and then they move to other location stuff afterwards. But most filming takes place on studios, or in studios and on lots that are in these densely populated cities. Gee, I wonder why Hollywood would lean more liberal when the demographics of the area, or the areas that people actually shoot movies in, lean more liberal. It's so weird, right? It's so strange.
But that's not remotely the case. Why? There are 5 reasons.
I wonder if his reasons will be any different than mine.
1. Guilt.
What? 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 Guilt? What?
A-list actors are paid incredible amounts of money to play dress-up. They're ridiculously fortunate, and they know it, and they feel guilty about it. That guilt must be assuaged. And what better way to assuage it than to speak up for the less fortunate?
So, the actors don't have, for the most part, as much power in Hollywood as the producers, as the directors, as the people who pay their salaries. Now, some actors manage to move past just the actor role and can become producers and directors in their own right. And those actors gain a lot of power. But outside of social media, actors themselves do not have the same power as the people who stand behind them. So, while there may be actors that do this is not a reason for Hollywood being more liberal. This is what we like to call post hoc ergo propter hoc. He is looking at a commonality between actors, and he's thinking that it means there's causality between the liberal bias in Hollywood, the money that funds it.
The undocumented immigrant, the misunderstood criminal, women, blacks, gays, and the transgender, too. And by God, there's an entire planet to be saved. You can't feel guilty if you're saving humanity, can you? Especially if it means no actual sacrifice on your part. 2.
So ignoring the fact that there are several actors that will pay hundreds of thousands of dollars and sometimes even millions of dollars out of their salaries towards the causes they care about, ignoring the fact that there are actors that will take on roles of gay people and trans people that can help normalize those things for audiences, ignoring the fact that we know as a society that our media plays a role in the way that we perceive reality. I've always wondered this, like, is it that you do the most good as a person when you are engaging in the most sacrifice? Or is it that you do the most good when there's actually, like, material benefit to the things you do? Does the most good come from the most sacrifice? Or does the most good come from the most material benefit to the most people? I would argue that it comes from the most material benefit. But the idea that sacrifice is the key component to whether or not you're doing a good thing, that is a very, very Christian ideal. That is a very Christian ideal to adhere to, even if it doesn't necessarily pan out in reality. Nakibri! You fuck. But fine. Thank you, Nakibri, for dropping 50,001 channel points. Even if it means I have to say, ooh. Go away now. Go away. Zoe Storm, thank you for resubscribing. Back to Prager you.
The need for meaning.
What?
Somewhere along the line, probably in the 60s when so many wholesome ideas went south, the notion that providing entertainment...
The 60s, when wholesome ideas went south. You mean like when Jim Crow got abolished? Red Joker, thank you for the 101 bits.
It was, in and of itself, valuable, lost currency. Not with the public, but with the glitterati. Sure, acting brings money and fame, but not meaning. And meaning is much more important than both.
Have you ever considered, right? Okay, so I'm gonna derail for a sec. There's a lovely video from Beau the Fifth Column. Yeah, the glitterati. Fuck. There's a lovely video from Beau the Fifth Column that goes over the idea that people turn more conservative as they get older. And I think there's some points from that video that can be used to help address this whole spiel right here, right? Did you ever think that the reason that media and entertainment moved further left is because society progresses? And ideas that are considered wholesome before, they're not necessarily more or less wholesome than anything, though throwing a kid in a lake is not super wholesome, and that's a, for some reason, celebrated thing that's done in some older movies. Do you ever think that maybe the idea that you didn't turn conservative as you got older, you just didn't progress with society? And so when what we're seeing as progressive things in movies in the 60s and 70s are now very conservative because you have not moved. Your opinions have not moved. But there is more progress in Hollywood. Have you ever thought that maybe it's that things were always that way and you just spend a lot of time glorifying the past? You ever thought about that? I don't know. Empress Vala says, I just watched that video recently. It's a good video. Red Joker, thank you very much for the 101 bits. Agamotto, thank you for the 100 bits. It's literally Hollywood is selling their product to an audience that is progressive. It's capitalism. It's just capitalism. Hollywood has a base of people that need to buy their product. Those people are largely more progressive because younger generations lean more progressive. Because they don't have older ideas informing them the way that people who are 50, 60, and 70 do. And because it is more profitable for Hollywood to sell their product to an audience that is going to be around for the next 50 or 60 years, as opposed to who have been on the planet for that long and will be dying in the next 10, 20, or 30, Hollywood stands to make more money by selling to progressives. Because there will be more progressives alive.
Especially if you can purchase it so inexpensively. All you have to do is say the right things about the right causes. That those causes always happen to be leftist ones is merely a coincidence.
Right, because okay, so what is a leftist cause versus a right cause? Because when I think of a right cause, like a right-wing cause, I think of something like the NRA, and fuck the NRA. I think of studies that have been used to promote violence and shit against transgender people and gay people, and fuck that. I think about causes like, say, the LGB Alliance. Fuck that. I think of a lot of really, really awkward and bad things. When I think of left-wing causes, I think of stuff like, say, the Trevor Project. Now, I know that that's entirely anecdote. Like, entirely anecdotal. If somebody's got some better examples in there that they could give me, that would be great. But again, when I think of right-wing causes and right-wing organizations, I think of shit like the Heritage Organization. So, or the Heritage Foundation. I just don't see good things from those causes. I see old, dying ideas that should be left 50 years ago when they were tolerated, as opposed to, you know, thrown under the bus.
3. The need to be loved. Everyone...
Again, that's a capitalism thing. If people do not love your director, if people do not love the things that you do, then you're going to get tossed away. That's pretty normal. Before he gets into his point, I just want to throw out... So, y'all remember Joss Whedon, right? What happened with Joss Whedon? As soon as people realized dude was a fucking creep, all of his social capital in Hollywood just kind of got flushed. It really got flushed. No, Joss Whedon's not God's Not Dead. Joss Whedon is Firefly. Joss Whedon is the one who did the Avengers, the first one. Joss Whedon is the one who was brought in to fix Zack Snyder's Justice League. That's Joss Whedon. He was a very, very loved and celebrated person in Hollywood, and then when his social capital was spent, a lot of that started to just disappear. That need to be loved comes down to a need to be able to sell yourself. Again, it's just capitalism. I'm no stranger to this as a VTuber, as a person who has a job on the internet. What I do on the internet as an entertainer is I talk to a live audience of people 3, 4, 5 days a week. And when I'm talking to that live audience of people, if there's not a percentage of that audience that cares about me as a person, that loves the content that I do, then I cease having a job. I cease having a position on the internet. Because my social capital disappears if there is not a group of people who are willing to watch and be there when I go live, when I make videos, when I do anything. But, so I guess this is me agreeing with his point that everyone wants to be loved, but pointing out that that's, you know, that's not a reason that Hollywood is liberal, because there are plenty of loved creators who are conservative on this platform.
Everyone wants to be loved and admired. but most actors live to be loved and admired. Success for an actor is being adored by strangers. When stars rail against border enforcement, pro-lifers, or a certain real estate mogul, and still get fawning press coverage, that's even more love and admiration. And there's a bonus. You get to be told how courageous you are for speaking out. A rant about guns, an Oscar night becomes a powerful statement. It doesn't get better than that. Speaking of Oscars, if you have any hope of winning an award, and who doesn't want awards, that ambition goes out the window if you're suspected of being on the wrong side of the political aisle. 4. Career preservation.
Again, okay, so have you noticed that he's only talking about the actors? Have you noticed he's only talking about actors? Not one thing he's brought up here so far has anything to do with the people who actually run Hollywood. It has nothing to do with the directors. It has nothing to do with the producers. It has nothing to do with the financiers. It has nothing to do with the people who sign the paychecks of everyone that... Oh. I understand. It's because we know the actors. When we think Hollywood, we think Chris Pratt. We think The Rock. We think Jennifer Lawrence. We think people who are actors on the stage. We very, very rarely think about the people who are behind them, who are funding them, who are writing their scripts, who are giving them their jobs in the back room. We don't think about the special effects departments. We don't think about any of that shit. We think about the actors. They are the ones that get the spotlight on them. They are the ones people know. And because PragerU talks to the lowest common denominator, they know that to get their message out to the most people, it is better for them, it is better on their part to talk about the actors, talk about those front-facing people, talk about the people that they know, talk about the people that they think you will know. Because the people that they think you will know are the best avenue into getting their opinion into your brain. But that's just my opinion, based on a lot of watching of PragerU's videos.
Job security doesn't exist in Hollywood, and this makes everyone, from the top stars to the lowest crew members, very nervous. So, in order not to give anyone the slightest excuse not to hire them, Hollywood types double down on woke posts to Twitter or Instagram praising the latest leftist fad.
Again, what you have not done, though, is you've not pointed out why, like, the money in Hollywood is that way. You're just talking about the actors. Like, you can be like, aha, Hollywood woke because actors scared, so actors post about leftist things. Okay, cool. Actors post about leftist things, but why are they doing that? Why is that a thing that's happening? Why is that where the political trends lend? Like, why is that a thing? And if you can't tell me why that's a thing, if you can't tell me the reason why they are doing that, you just post that, oh, well, they do this because they're scared. Well, they is the actors, and the actors are not the money in Hollywood. The actors are paid by the people behind them. Those are the ones I care about. I care about the people who are funding the actors. I care about the producers. I care about the people who make these movies work. I care about the people who finance these movies.
Messages send a clear signal to their colleagues and especially to their employers. I'm a forward-thinking progressive just like you.
To their employers, yes. 4 of these points, though, have only talked about the colleagues. Can we talk about the employers? That's probably a more important lightning rod than any of these other points.
Push against this orthodoxy and you'll pay a stiff price. Ask Gina Carano how that works. When the star of the popular Disney series The Mandalorian suggested that conservatives were being persecuted for their political beliefs,
that's not what she did. She specifically said that conservatives were being like Jews. She literally ran with a Holocaust metaphor, specifically. A Holocaust metaphor. That's what she decided to go with. That's the reason that she got yanked.
She was lightsabered from both the show and Hollywood Inc. Or consider how singer Macy Gray changed her tune after she said trans women aren't the same as women. Mercilessly pounded for this apostasy, it only took a few days for her to fully recant.
It has nothing to do with apostasy, though. It has nothing to do with orthodoxy. For those things, it has to do with there being social pressures about progressive causes. I know he's just being metaphorical, but it's very awkward to me that PragerU, an organization that pushes Judeo-Christian orthodoxy, insofar as that statement even has meaning, like, it's just projection. It's just It's not a category error, it's projection. PragerU is getting upset. Dude is getting upset about a thing that PragerU pushes. Hollywood does not have an orthodoxy. Hollywood does, however, have a left-leaning bias. That is true. But he still isn't talking about why. He still doesn't want to say why Hollywood has a left-leaning bias. He's just talking about the actors. Hollywood has a left-leaning bias, so the actors do left-leaning things. Okay, cool. That's neat. But 4 of 5 points in, and we still haven't talked about the money that runs Hollywood.
5. If it's right, it must be wrong. There is a pervasive belief in Hollywood that conservative ideas are grounded in hate or denial. Conservatives hate gays and minorities, deny science, and even deny that America is systemically racist.
These are all things that, to some level of hyperbole or no, you can find a lot of conservatives doing in the United States, though. Let's go point by point. Hate gays or minorities. Okay, cool. Do all conservatives hate gays or minorities? No, but when I say do all conservatives hate anything, I'd be painting with a broad brush. But let's look at trends. Within the Republican Party, the conservative party of the United States, gay people are a lot less allowed than they should be. We did an entire video a while back on the Log Cabin group that was founded in Texas. It was basically trying to be the bastion for gay Republicans. And over time, that got morphed into something it wasn't. And when you look in the Republican Party, you don't find a lot of gay people. There are gay people who are Republicans, but by and large, the party leans more on straight people. They lean more on maintaining rights for straight people and stripping rights away from gay people. Ask the average Republican politician how they feel about gay marriage, and you will find far more of them in the Republican Party that are against it than you will in, say, the Democratic Party. So, do they all hate gays or minorities? No, but by and large, you'll find that sentiment more often there than you will anywhere else in America. The minorities as well. Minorities meaning gay people, meaning trans people, meaning people who are Mexican. We saw a rise in anti-Asian hate crimes because of rhetoric from Donald Trump and other Republicans during the beginning of the COVID crisis. We saw a rise in prejudice against Mexican people in the United States because of rhetoric from Trump and other Republicans. And this is whenever President Bush was in power, we saw a rise in hate towards Muslims in the United States. These are trends that we can see, we can map. We know of them. But on to denying science. Well, considering that the scientific consensus on trans people is that they are valid, then that is one type of science that, yeah, a lot of conservatives do tend to actually argue against. We know that the science on climate change and that the world itself is in fact heating up and is in fact becoming less hospitable for thousands of species, including humans. But Republicans deny that on a daily basis. So that's 2 for 3. Last one, deny that America is systemically racist. My guy, we still have to deal with systemic racism right now. There are people alive today that lived through Jim Crow, which means there are people alive today that were still trying to mandate it. America has gotten better, but it is not now magically not racist. We still have a long way to go.
And on and on. Imagine, they wail, if these haters ever gain power, we descend into fascism, or worse. This explains why celebrities get hysterical whenever the political winds shift. Hollywood activists never say, "Oh, we lost that one." They say, "It's the end of the world." And to them, it is.
Do they say it's the end of the world? Again, this feels less like your hyperbole and more like you're projecting your hyperbole onto other people now.
Okay, I can hear you asking, why should we care what Hollywood actors think?
We shouldn't.
I agree, we shouldn't care so much, but let's face it, a lot of people do. Stars are American royalty. And, like it or not, they have a big platform. When they take strident political positions, it further divides us. We should care because it's just plain un-American that an entire industry discriminates against those who hold a different point of view.
Does Hollywood discriminate against conservatives? Is that a thing they actually do? So does Prager you guy echo posting right now? Like, hold on. Just curious. Where is that discrimination held? Because if it's just that actors who shout out on Twitter about conservative stuff don't get hired as often, that's not necessarily discrimination against conservatives. Because most conservatives would agree that any organization is allowed to hire and fire anybody they want for whatever reason. If they want to argue that they shouldn't be able to do that, then, you know, that's a thing that they could do, and then we can have a conversation about unions. But that's a conversation that most conservatives don't like having, usually. Luckily, Hollywood actually does have an actors guild. There are unions in Hollywood. But, anywho.
Liberals were appalled when this happened during the anti-communist Hollywood blacklisting of the 1950s. Why aren't they appalled now?
Because McCarthyism was basically throwing anybody they could into the label of communist, irrespective of if they even fit the label, and it probably the best example of actual cancel culture existing was Joe McCarthy. But why aren't they upset now when it's conservatism? Well, you have to ask about like what conservative ideals are getting people knocked off. When we're talking about Gina Carano, we're talking about a girl who literally was using Holocaust rhetoric to argue that bad things were happening to conservatives. Holocaust rhetoric. That's what she was leaning on. I'm sorry, buddy, but if those are the examples you're going to have to bring up, then I don't know if I care. I don't know if I care to care.
And we should care because it's tough to take all that liberal hypocrisy. No one should own guns, but they have private security. Nobody should have an SUV, but they are chauffeured around in Suburbans.
Okay, so these aren't really things about hypocrisy. Not to mention, right now, you're painting with a broad brush, saying that everybody or most people in Hollywood believe these things. If I have to add caveats to this when I'm talking about conservatives, then you need to do the exact same thing here. But let's go point by point. One can say, I don't like guns, and I don't think people should have them. Despops, thank you very much for the follow. But you can have that opinion and also recognize that, realistically, you have to live in a world where people do have guns, and so you need hired security that has guns to protect you. That's just being pragmatic. There's nothing hypocritical about that.
Security. Nobody should have an SUV, but they are chauffeured around in Suburbans.
So, nobody should have an SUV. I don't think I've ever actually heard this one. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. Usually when PragerU puts something up there, there is a catalyst somewhere. Despop says, you're doing the you're doing work? You're doing the what? Like, I have an SUV because it's a vehicle that I need to be able to sleep in when I'm traveling. You're doing the Lord's work? Oh, fair enough. But again, I'm not saying this is a sentiment that isn't held by some people in Hollywood. I'm sure there are some that have that, and people want to say stuff about private jets and all that other fun shit here. And I can understand there being some frustration with that. I can. At the same time, though, getting chauffeured around, that's literally just existing in a system that contains these things. If I, as an individual, don't use an SUV, that doesn't change the system that I'm in right now.
CO2 emissions are destroying the planet. They fly to Cannes or just across town in their private jets.
Across town in their private jets? Is that a thing that happens? I mean, I understand, like, flying to other areas. Private jets are a thing that I'm still iffy on. I'm a very public transportation guy. I also am of the opinion that flying on regular airplanes should be viewed more like a bus ride and less like a private enterprise thing. But it's weird to me, right? Okay, so you can point out CO2 emissions are destroying the world, and you can have the opinion that we need to do stuff about it. And the stuff that we need to do about it largely comes down to lowering the amount of net emissions that we let out in the industrial sector. That's where the majority of things are, production. That's where most CO2 is felt on the planet. Twitch says I like private jets. Do you have a private jet? It's weird. It's always weird to me for somebody to like something that they don't have. And statistically, I don't think anybody in my audience has a private jet. just saying. I'd be confused if they did. But I'm not going to say that there is a good reason to have private jets. It feels, again, I'm of the opinion that we should be using regular air travel more like a standard set of public transportation. So they look cool, and besides, who says I can't steal one when things go to shit? Fair enough, I guess. So this is a point that I'm iffy on. Like, I don't think it's hypocrisy, but I also do agree that private jets are not a great thing in and of themselves. Then again, I don't think PragerU believes that private jets are a bad thing, so I'm not even really agreeing with PragerU here. I'm just coming at this from a very different angle.
Yes, we could stop going to their movies and turn off their TV shows. But what we really want is for them to do what they do best and what brings people together in laughter and tears. We want them to act.
They do that, though. They do that all the time.
Oh, how we would love them if they just did that. I'm Christian Toto.
Okay, so he just did the don't kneel for the anthem thing. He just did the don't kneel for the anthem thing. He literally just told all actors, don't have an opinion. Don't have a public opinion. Don't do things on the internet. Don't be a public figure. Just act in movies. Just act in movies. That's all. That's all he wants you to do. That's it. Yeah, shut up and dribble. That's basically what he's doing. That's basically what he's doing. That's just agitating, though. I feel like if you're a figure, you should be able to say your opinion, you know, within reason. If you end up saying your opinion, like, oh no, it turns out to be a Nazi one, yeah, fuck it. Get canceled, get shat on, take the L, get ratioed on Twitter, what have you. But I don't know. I've never liked this opinion that just because somebody has a job, they should just shut up and do that job. Like, if I see somebody being racist when I was working at Publix, I shouldn't just shut up and make sandwiches. I should point out that they're being racist and they should change their behaviors. Like, that's a thing I should do. Yeah, they're so free speech until they tell celebrities not to have opinions. PragerU, noted free speech enthusiasts. Anyway, that's as much as I got in me where that's concerned. PragerU tires me. They bore me to tears. But then again, they also have very densely packed stupid in a very, very watchable video format. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Some of you probably don't agree with the things that I said here. Some of you might like private jets and think they're perfectly okay. Let me know. As always, everybody, though, insert end video tagline here.